Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, welcome to Talking Buffalo, part of the Blue Air Network. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for locking in. Audio side, video side, it is Tuesday, which I believe is the last day of January. Probably should have looked at a calendar before I go saying that. But anyways, always on Tuesday. I'm joined by good friend, podcaster, writer, just getting over feeling under the weather for the last handful of days. Joe Yerdon, man. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good, which is a nice change from about a week ago where I felt like absolute dog crap. So yeah, I'll take getting over it as opposed to getting into it as it goes. But yeah, no, we're doing good, man. And finally, we got
You sound good.
Thank you. I'm glad I do. And I'm gonna predict I'm not gonna have to mute my mic a lot to clear my throat, so to speak. But yeah, no, it's good. Like, we got the hockey team back in town, so we get to get off my couch for a little bit. Well, I mean, get to get off my couch because I'm feeling good, but
Right.
get to go do some work things now. Finally, outside of my living room.
I want to, before we get into some Bills talk and some Sabres talk today, I got a couple other fun segments or topics that I also want to hit on with Joe. I don't usually promote, like I always say thanks for tuning in, audio side, video side at the beginning, but pretty much that's it. I'm right there on the cusp right now of getting to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So before you even get going, I do want to ask people, even if you're listening to this on the audio side, go to YouTube and hit subscribe. I'm just looking right now, I'm refreshing, and we're taping this Monday afternoon. I'm at 986 subscribers. Dude, I got to get to 1,000, man. That's 14 subscribers. Now it's personal. You know what I'm saying? I've been saying this for a while too. And the podcast has been growing, and especially on the video side, because there really was no video element to this early on. And once we do get to 1,000, I'm going to start doing some things. Like, for an example, not all the time, but once in a while, like when Joe and I tape, or if I tape with Aaron Quinn or I have a guest on, I do it live. Do it on YouTube live for people. They want to watch it live and they don't want to wait for the podcast to come out the next day, or they want to ask some questions, have some comments and stuff. I can pull some up and we can start having more fun with it. So I did promise all along I was going to do that when I got to 1,000, and I'm finally there. Hopefully by the time you're hearing this on Tuesday morning, it will be at 1,000. But anyway, that's a nice little milestone to get to for this podcast. So subscribe, man.
I literally just did, because I've been dragging my behind on a lot of this stuff, and I was like, all right, I haven't done that. So I just opened it up and subscribed. So you're 13 away as of this recording. So helping. I was hoping you were going to be like, I'm one away, so I could be like, gotcha, buddy. And then
your face is on that YouTube. Your face is on that YouTube channel almost as much as mine, man.
That's true. I mean, I don't know what's less fortunate for everybody, but yeah, it's. I figured I better subscribe so I can get you back, get you up closer to that magic 1,000 mark.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody. But that said, and I've made no secret about it, I do prefer, and by far and away, more people listen to this and watch it, and I prefer it stays that way. So go subscribe on YouTube, even if you don't watch it. I still prefer that you listen. I just think I'm an audio snob, and I think the quality of audio is a lot better than the video. Anyway, before we get into a couple Bills topics or football topics and then transition into the Sabres, let me read something. I'm going to call this like the question of the week, okay? And every week I'm going to bring up something, and then I want to get a take from you on this.
Okay.
And I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it, because I'm going to read, I put this on Twitter shortly before we started taping today. So I'll give you a couple minutes to think on what your answer might be. But I said this: what are the worst people in the world? Tyler Dunn started the people who don't return their shopping carts. He started that movement.
Yep.
And I went on a rant today about people who use ice cubes in the trays and then don't refill them, but just stick it right back into the fridge anyway. I noticed that this morning because I went to get I wanted a glass of ice water, and I didn't have any water in the fridge. So I just poured a cup and went to grab an ice tray, and it was like, what's there, 20 slots? It was like 4 ice cubes in there and 16 empty ones. I want to kill my son, by the way, or one of my friends, because I had some people over Saturday. So it might have been one of them. But anyway, that's like my thing. So then I asked, like, what else you got out for Twitter? I said I'm going to feature a few of these on the podcast. Let me read a couple of these while you think about it for a minute.
Okay.
Let me get here. I have blind. I can't even see some of these. Somebody told me it's time for a new refrigerator. Ain't got no time to be filling ice cubes. I'm like, all right, well, that's fair. People who back into parking spots. That's not a bad one. Think about it, man. You're driving in the park and you back into a parking spot. It takes as much time and effort to back in when you first get there as when you do when you leave, when you back out.
Right.
I've never kind of understood that either. In fact, in Florida, it's actually illegal to do that.
Really?
Yeah, because there's no front license plates in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
That's
right.
Cop can't see your plate, so it's actually illegal in Florida. It should be illegal everywhere. People who talk on their phones while they're at a cash register.
Oh,
not bad.
Yeah.
That was a guy, one of the guys from Cover One. Here's another one from Cover One. Greg Vorst TV. He says, anyone that litters, fire those bastards straight into the sun.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Jenna, our good friend Jenna Stockman, formerly of Channel 7. People who leave leftover blinking cooking time on a microwave. Ooh. The clear button is right there to push when you're finished. All right, that's not a bad one. Let me look here, a couple more. People who hold up the plane boarding process to carefully fold their coated jacket and place it in the overhead bin. That is actually a really, really good one. The name's common on
there's
Twitter.
A lot of travel ones I could think of, like right off the top of my head too. Like
there is, because here's another one. It's from Mark Stupa. He says, people in the row behind you on an airplane who push ahead into plane before you, without giving you a chance to stand up and walk off. Those that rip off pizza or donuts by hand and put them back in the box. That was from a guy named Lewis. DJ Jarka, people who don't use turn signals. Again, that's not even a pet peeve. That's like literally illegal.
Yeah. That's like half the city of Buffalo, though. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Bill's news guy says people who are disrespectful to waiters and servers. I couldn't agree more. Let's see here. Two more I got here. Scott McKinnis says bathroom talkers. That's a good one. You do get that. I don't know how it is with women. I can tell you with men sometimes. This doesn't happen a lot, but it's kind of creepy when it does. And then the last one, a guy named Justin. This is actually kind of funny. Hamlin truthers. People who were convinced that DeMar Hamlin was dead until this past weekend. So Hamlin truthers. You got one? I mean, we covered a lot there.
You mentioned the travel one, and I almost blacked out because there's 5 different things I could mention for that, but I'm gonna steer away from it. I'm just gonna. It's kind of a basic one, and it's one that just every time I have to like kind of bite my tongue from saying something. But you're walking through a door, like people are like in a lot. You're going through a door. You have to like hold the door open, right? Like pull the door open, do that. People who just let it slam in front of the next person in line.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Every time it happens to me, I'm just like, oh, excuse me, or oh, geez, I'll go fuck myself, I guess. Like it's one of those kinds of things where I'm just like, there's somebody walking behind you. There's somebody directly behind you. You're just kind of like, nah, I'm just not gonna bother. Like, okay, Mr. Miss Self-Important, like, way to go.
That is a good one. That's a good one.
That's the one that irks me. It happens sometimes at the arena because we go in through the security entrance for press and whatever, and it's everybody that's going. If you work there, well, everybody works there if you're going through there. But like sometimes people are just like they're locked in and they just go through it and they don't hold the door. And I'm just okay, all right, well, I guess I'll open the door then. Yeah, and then but then it's like I turn into the doorman and I just hold it open for like the next 4 people in line. I'm just like, no, I'm paying this forward. You guys go ahead. And then I'll walk through and then leave it open for the next person coming through. I'll even see somebody like way down the sidewalk. I'll be like, nope, come on. And then they run. And I'm like, no, don't run. Like,
take your time.
You don't need to run, man. Like, you're good. Like, it's fine. I'm just holding it open because I don't want to be the dick in front of me that didn't.
Those were some good ones, man. I liked it, especially the guy who made fun of me for still having ice trays. Like, I'm not rich enough, I guess, to have the freezer that automatically.
I don't have one of those either. But like, I don't use ice that much. So
I don't either. But still, today was a rare day where I wanted it, and it was not there for me, and that kind of angered me.
Yeah. When I was living with when I was living at home or anything like that, man, every time I'd catch that, and like my sister growing up, my sister was never gonna fill up the ice trays ever. And I'd open it, and there'd be like one cube, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on.
I got one more bonus one too that I didn't mention. This is one I just thought of as well. People were in front of you in line at a convenience store and decide that it's a great time to play a bunch of lottery numbers and get a bunch of scratch offs. And they take 10 minutes. They don't even know what they want until they're up at the counter. And then they take like 10 minutes to get all their scratch offs or play the win 3 or the win 4 numbers for that night. And you get stuck behind them for 10, 15 minutes when you're trying to get out of the store.
Yeah. That's irksome. I get more upset at the people that turn it into like, I want to chat up the checkout person. Like,
yeah,
dude, you know why we're here, right? Like, you just bought like a Gatorade and you're just here to yak it away. Like, you haven't had any social interaction, so you're now holding this person working there hostage but like making small talk. It's like, dude, get a move on. Let's go.
Yeah, that's another good one too. All right, so like I said, we'll talk some Sabres in just a couple minutes. Yesterday, again, we're taping this Monday, so Sunday was an interesting conference championship Sunday for the NFL. One game never really materialized. Brock Purdy went down early, and that really sucked. That game might have played out a lot differently if that didn't happen. But the Chiefs-Bengals game, plenty of I wouldn't say it was a very well-played game. Like, there was a lot of mistakes, a lot of penalties. It was a messy game, but it was still very compelling and a lot of drama. And of course, Kansas City wins and they're going to the Super Bowl for a third time in 5 years. By the way, Pat Mahomes, 5 years as a starter, 5 years in the AFC Championship, 3 Super Bowls. He's the man. He's the man.
Pretty good.
Here's what I wanted to ask you, man. And thinking, we're sitting here dicking around early on talking about things that, that bother us, Tyler Dunn's shopping carts and all that other stuff. But on a serious note, you look at that game yesterday, okay? And I mean, we'll talk a little bit about how the Bengals acted after they beat Buffalo last week, because I do got a couple thoughts on that. But the kid, Joseph Azai, the linebacker, number 58, the penalty, which is going to go down as one of the worst and quite frankly, the dumbest penalties that you'll ever see. And it could not have possibly, obviously, have come at a worse time than it did. Initially, and all week long before the Cincinnati beat the Bills, I said this many times, I said, if the Bills can't get to the Super Bowl, I hope the Bengals do. After the Bills game, I kind of changed my mind about that, quite frankly, because I was really annoyed at Eli Apple and just a couple, they were just talking a lot of shit, the Bengals. I feel like they didn't win with much dignity and class. So I got myself to a point Sunday. I said, I really don't give a shit who wins this game anymore, but I was kind of leaning for the Chiefs. Anyway, in the moment when Ozai committed that penalty, I made a smart ass comment. I thought I was being funny. I really wasn't funny at all. But I said something about like, Bills Mafia, go ahead and donate to Joseph Asai. And I said that tongue in cheek because the Bills always donate. Like when the Bengals helped the Bills end their playoff drought, they donated.
About those things, Pat.
It was meant to be tongue in cheek. Okay. And like I said, it wasn't funny. But anyway, my point was, at first I'm like making fun of the guy. And I can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine because I saw a lot of it on social media, what people were saying about this guy. But within a couple minutes, I was like, I genuinely feel terrible for this man. This 22-year-old kid, man. He's 22 years old, Joe. And after my smartest comment, it just, I don't know. I felt really bad. I started thinking about this dude at just 22 years old is going to have a burden on his shoulders to carry for probably the rest of his career, maybe the rest of his life. And I think back, I played rec league softball and shit, and I remember booting a ball playing in the infield, and it made us lose a game. And I was kind of ashamed to go to the bar afterwards and have to look at my friends and my teammates in the eyes, and say, oh, I fucked up. I blew the game for us. That was embarrassing enough. And I'm sure you know how that is too, whether it's sports or darts or something you did to blow it and lose for, you and your team. That's hard to take on a friendship level, on a rec league, a bear league level. Imagine being a team, Joe. It's well, the game isn't over there. They didn't lose necessarily on that play alone. But my point is this, man. He blew it. Terrible call. He made it go from like a 60-yard field goal to a 40-something yard field goal, which of course he made
45 or something. Yeah.
Right. Just imagine. Can you imagine how hard it must be on that kid's shoulders right now? And he stood in the locker room after the game, and a couple of his teammates supported him. One teammate in the heat of the moment teed off on him going in the locker room, and that got captured on video. But just imagine though, man, that being that kid right now, again, 22 years old, and knowing that these fans are going to turn on. A lot of them are going to hate you forever, and they are too.
Oh yeah,
they're going to hate him.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get over it, and they're not going to forgive him. I mean, look at Scott Norwood. All these years later, he's still, he's a lot of love in Buffalo, but you know what I'm saying. Can you imagine how this kid feels, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, certainly not at the level that he's feeling it. I get it. I mean, back in the day, there was a game that I blew by making a mistake. I was playing first base. It was a Babe Ruth League game, just knock around community baseball or whatever. And I played first base, and like the game was running late at night, and throw was coming. It was like going to be like it was going to be the third out of the inning, and like everybody's running because it's 2 outs, so everybody's going. And the throw comes across the diamond, and the throw goes right up into the lights, and I couldn't see where it was coming. I was like, uh-oh. So I just got my glove out there, and I'm like, if it hits the glove, just squeeze. If it hits the glove, just squeeze. It hit the glove, and it hit like right in the heel of the mitt. So I couldn't squeeze it, and it hits the ground. Guy beats it out. I grabbed the ball and hold it up, and guy was safe. Winning run comes across the plate. I was like, oh, I was so annoyed at myself. And a couple of my teammates were less than mature people, and to begin with, so they handled it very poorly. So I felt like an ass. But maybe don't put your throw up high enough to put it in the lights across the diamond. Just throw me a laser right across. Like I can see that easy, but like that sucks. It sucks to be on that end of it where, it's kind of on you, and like that play. I mean, I watched it as it happened, and like, Mahomes runs out of bounds. I was like, well, that's dumb to let him get free. Oh, that's even worse. Cause
he's 3 yards out of bounds.
Right. Like the second he puts the hand on him and pushes, I'm like, well, that's it. That's 15 yards right there. So whatever the field goal is, it's going to be a lot shorter. And I, not paying attention that close. I didn't realize he was that far out before. Like I thought he had already run to like the 40, and I was like, oh, well, this is going to put the ball to 25. They're good. No, he was at like midfield. I was like, right. That sucks. Cause now it's really game over unless Butker, yanks it, but that dude's too good. But yeah, it sucks. It sucks bad to be in that spot because, think about it. I think about it this way. It was really bad on them to let Mahomes just kind of roll and run, because that was what the second or third time he had already done it, like late in the game.
Yeah.
And here it is. It's crunch time. You want to get it to overtime, make sure they don't score. And he just rolls out and he just takes off, and you're like, all right, well, here he goes again. And now he's getting like, chews off like 10 plus yards on that run.
He was out at the 42. So,
right.
I mean,
so you're pissed that he's running, and you're just like, whatever, screw that guy, but you're already 5 yards out of bounds and can't do that. Like it's, if it was like a running back or something, maybe it doesn't get flagged. It probably still does, but like the quarterback getting pushed. Yeah. It's like, I was surprised there was only one flag that was in the shot of, in the immediate shot. Cause I was waiting for everything to get thrown on the field as that happens. Cause you don't do that. It's the friggin' quarterback, but he's a rookie. And like, I'd rather a guy get caught up in a penalty for effort. I mean, it's dumb.
It was a dumb penalty.
It's an effort dumb penalty. It's not like a lazy, piece of crap thing. Like he was chasing him, he runs out of bounds, and he's just like, well, whatever, screw you, dude. And can't do that. But I'd rather a guy try too hard than not try hard enough. I guess is the point I want to get around on with that.
Sure. But like getting beat on a play, like if you're a corner and you fall for a double move and you get roasted and you lose the game on a play like that, that's one thing. But this was like mental. You got to be smart enough to not hit a guy 5 yards out of bounds. You got to know you're in the NFL, rookie or not, you're training. The guy near the sidelines, you don't go near the quarterback. There's just nothing to gain. But this is what I'm getting at. So I remember this when what happened with DeMar. We didn't do a show that next day because it was wildly inappropriate for us to talk football, and we talked about it. We did a show the next week, and I remember part of our conversation was talking about kind of humanizing players a little more. And like my takeaway from what happened to DeMar was at least to make an attempt. You know, I still lose my shit at times because I'm a very over emotional football fan, especially when it comes to my teams that I have emotional investment in. Don't really have an emotional investment in the Bengals. I wanted them to lose, but whatever, you know. But anyway, it went from, yeah. Oh, my God, it's so funny. He blew the game. Talk all that shit all the week, Eli Apple. Yeah, yada. It went from all that to, like, seeing the guy literally in tears on the bench, on the sideline, head in his hands, sobbing. And I don't just mean, like, you know, a little couple tears coming down. I mean, sobbing uncontrollably because he knew that he is the reason that this happened, and that because Kansas City probably doesn't even attempt, well, maybe they do attempt it, but it would have been a 59 or 60-yard field goal in a very, like, 7 or 8 degree wind chill. They had the target line at the 32, so he was a full 10 yards beyond what their target line was supposed to be before the penalty. Anyway, I started thinking about that, our conversation after what happened with DeMar, and I'm like, these guys are human beings. And I just the pain and the humiliation that this guy must feel and the shame. And I know the city eventually, as they get over it, they'll rally around him for the most part. But, you know, there's still going to be those people, man. You're a human being. You read, most of these guys anyway, they read the papers. They look at Twitter. They look at Facebook. You know how it is. It's the first time this guy tweets anything.
If they don't read it, somebody else is going to be like, hey, man, did you see what they said? Thanks. Great.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. I was happy they lost, but I felt really bad for the guy as a human being. I heard you talking about even though you were talking about, well, you did mention it was football wise on Maintenance Day podcast, which by the way, that is every Monday. Well, not every Monday, but it's once a week, usually on Monday, depending the Sabres schedule, you know, could get a little screwy. So sometimes you guys will tape on a different day. But anyway, my point was I was listening to your show on Monday morning with Lance, and you talked about the officials. And you're not a guy that, you know, who blames officials, but it did seem like in fairness to the Bengals, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist either with officials. I'm like you, and I agree with what you said on the show with Lance. You know, I'm not that guy who points fingers at the officials and blames a lot of shit on them. But do you feel like this game was a little bit like borderline lopsided with some of these calls? I do. And again, I'm not even a Chiefs fan or, you know, any of that shit. But I was like, God damn, this team's getting seems like they're getting a lot of calls, and Cincinnati didn't get away with anything, and Kansas City did. Maybe it's not even so much the calls that were made; it was a lot of the ones that weren't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm of the mind with football that there could be a penalty on every single play in the game. Like, I mean, everybody. The saying is always like, "There's holding on every play." Well, yeah, of course there is. You know, you've got one guy trying to watch the entire line. You know, one or two guys trying to watch the whole thing. And you're going to miss something. Like, it's just going to happen. You know, guys are sneaky. They'll find ways to get around it, like whatever. So, and you know, this opens the door for me to kind of bust your chops about what you said about, would you rather have home field playing when it's 8 degrees or, you know, in a neutral site where it's, you know, indoors turf, 35,000. That's why you play for home field, because your crowd can affect everything. And it's not just the other team. You know, it affects the other team because they're going to be loud. It makes it harder to call plays, the whole thing. Hear the snap count, all that stuff. But it also affects the officiating because, they're humans, And like, you start getting crap from them. Not everybody has that spite button in the back of their mind like I do, where it's like, oh, you're going to keep booming? Well, guess what? guess how much worse the calls are going to get for you. But it affects things. And, you know, it's, you know, and they're getting yelled at by both benches all game long. Watching the Cincinnati coach late in the game where they made a lot of bad penalties. Like, they took some really dumb penalties late in that one. Like, just, you know, on both sides of the ball, they were just being idiots with some of that stuff. Not as bad as like San Francisco was earlier in the day, but like just stuff you don't do in a tight game late. Like, just making idiot mistakes. And it's like, and he's screaming at the ref. He's like, you gotta be kidding me about that. About it. Like, same thing for like the push out of bounds. He's like, you gotta be he's just right up in the ref's face. And watching the side judge come roaring up next to him, being like, get the fuck away from me. You saw what happened. And like, I've never seen a ref come running up like that, being like, shut your mouth right now.
Right.
I mean, you're always gonna like politic for your guys. You're always gonna do it. But man, oh man, just make it so that it's more gray area instead of being like, well, yeah, no, that's a penalty. Sorry. Like that's the call. I don't know. There's one clip that was getting around on Twitter. It was like, which one, who was it? Oh, it was Bill Simmons. So yeah, I take him with a grain of salt anyways, but he's like, which one of the holds was your favorite on this play? And I'm like, I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't think there's a hold on that play because all the linemen got their hands in tight. Like they're not grabbing any, pulling them down. Like wasn't anything like that, but all the hands are within their shoulders and they're just pushing. And these guys can't swim over. They can't get around. These guys are just manhandling these dudes and just shoving them around. They're like, I don't know, man. It doesn't look like there's any holding to me there. It just looks like these guys can't get around like these linemen. Like, but they were getting to the backfield the entire second half. Just that one play they couldn't.
I thought the calls were prety questionable in that game. And I felt like some calls went to Kansas City that were really, really borderline. The Frisco game, that 49ers just imploded. I mean, that's not on the refs. That was just dumb play after dumb play after dumb play. It was 20-7. I remember this. It was because in the Frisco game, it was 20-7 or 21-7 at the time. They forced a punt. And the game's pretty much over at that point. But who knows? You get the ball and McCaffrey bust or Debo make a big play. And now it's 2014. You got the other team at home. Maybe they said get a little tight and, play a little bit tight. But no, the guy fucking literally runs into the kicker. It's a 15-yard personal foul. Philly gets the ball back. Touchdown, bam, 28-7 game over. You can't complain about the call. It was a great call.
Right.
And now, you can't complain about the call on Joseph Asai because it was literally the right call. But there were some calls. And by the way, too, for people who are wondering what Joe was talking about on Twitter, he's 100% right. And I'll admit this. I was wrong and Joe was right. What I said to him was, or just to people, I said, if you're a player, I said, would you rather have home field advantage if the temperature's like 7 degrees out versus playing on a neutral field comfortably in a dome where the weather is no factor? And I alluded to the fact that I think that I know fans would rather be at home, but I said that I think players would rather be on the neutral field and be in a comfortable dome as opposed to playing on their home stadium, 6-7 degree wind chill out there. But you were right. I was wrong. And I'll tell you why I say that too, is because I talked to a couple players, and every player that I talked to said, hell no, I'd rather play at home in front of my own crowd. The energy that they give us is going to outweigh the being freezing your ass off. So yeah, I was completely wrong about that. You were 100% right.
Second you said that, I was like, dude, this is like 2 weeks in a row where you're saying something where it's kind of like, man, I can't wait to hold it over your head for this.
I'm getting those Nate Gary take territory right now.
You don't want to emulate him, Pat. Like that's
I love Nate.
Territory where people are just like, I can't wait to see what idiot prediction he makes now.
Nate and I are a lot alike, man. We both come up with some like really heat of the moment, instant, not let's think about it too much takes. But anyway, so my biggest takeaway from the game wasn't like go Chiefs go or happy about that, because again, I don't like the Chiefs.
Right.
A little bit happy that the Bengals lost, but as I'm watching this game, and especially in the first half, oh my God, I was so pissed off. My biggest takeaway is this, man. I just got angry because I started thinking about last week's game. I'm like, all right, so the Chiefs that I'm watching pretty closely, they ain't doing nothing really that special, but their defensive line is just beating the living shit out of the Cincinnati makeshift line. I mean, listen, Chris Jones is an animal. That dude is one of the best players in the NFL, period, especially one of the best interior players, and he was an absolute monster. But I was angry watching the Kansas City pass rush get home. I mean, Burrow got sacked 4 times in the first half. I don't even think he got sniffed 4 times by the Bills. I watched Kansas City work screen passes that were very successful. That running back Pacheco was running the ball well. He was taking screen passes. They were throwing to a backup tight end on screen passes. Watching their rookies for Kansas City make key contributions. They had 2 rookie corners who had an interception. McDuffie, a third, who was actually their first-round pick. He didn't have an interception, but he had some passes defended. They had a rookie defensive end have a sack. that Sky Moore, the rookie, had a big punt return near the end of the game. Their rookies are making heavy contributions, whereas the Bills are hesitant to play their rookies unless they absolutely have to. It took injuries and stuff for security to even get on the field. And then you look to the playoff game last week, James Cook, who I thought could have been a good weapon against the Bengals. 0 targets in the passing game. 0. So I was just watching this game getting fucking pissed off, quite frankly, as a Bills fan. Because I'm like, this is just making me angry. This is the way you were supposed to play this team. And they didn't. So I just got mad.
You didn't mention the one thing that I thought would have been the lead thing for you. Now, you mentioned them getting in the backfield, sacking Burrow and doing that. The coverage. They pressed their receivers at the line the entire game. The entire game. Like, just one-on-one matchups for the most part. I mean, the safeties drop back, and the nickel back and the safeties played more zone-ish coverage. But they pressed Chase, they pressed Higgins, they pressed all these guys at the line to make them, fight through it, get through, and that bought time for the line to get through, and it worked.
It did. You're right, 100% right.
Adjusted, like they adjusted, like I think they showed a stat. It was like the second half. I think it was like the first. What was it? The first 8 something or other. Like they had 4 sacks, and then like the first 8 plays they had 4 sacks, and then the next 16 they didn't get in the backfield at all. And it's like, well, they made the adjustments, good, but they still played that way the whole game. Like they pressed up on coverage the whole time. And anytime they gave them any sort of, they backed off, those guys are open underneath and they're making plays. Like, no kidding. Of course they are, because one of those guys is going to get open, and they did. And that's how they found them. And I'm watching this going like, look how easy this is. This is like, I mean, football is a hard game to coach. It's a hard game to strategize. It's difficult. But I'm watching this and going like, this is basic shit. Like Kansas City watched that game and like, we're not going to play back. Forget that, man. Screw that. We're going to play up on them. Worked.
All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon from Maintenance Day Podcast and also Noted Hockey. And I was happy for the first half of this podcast, and I am no longer happy. You brought that up. You're 100% right. Before the break, you're talking about the Chiefs playing a lot more press coverage. And look, the Bengals made a couple plays, and take your hat off to them. T. Higgins made a great catch. Jamar Chase, they made great plays.
Incredible catch by Higgins.
Incredible catches. But, I agree. Kansas City played to win that game. I think they played to win. They punted a couple times, but all in all, they were smart punts, though. I felt like they were playing that game to win, and especially on defense. They said, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us, but we're going to be aggressive. We're going to get after you, and that's exactly what they did. They had a lot of success. It bothers me even more now than it did last week after the Bills game in the aftermath and the hours that passed. I'm more mad now watching another game since then on how the Bills played them. I really am, because, they didn't play. And then when they do play, I remember one play, the Bills brought like 7 guys on a rush, but then they had guys playing in his own coverage.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell are you doing here, man? What are we doing here?
Routes are just everybody just stopping and being like, okay, I'll catch it here.
And then I think about the offense. I mean, these guys, the Bengals were pressured. They only sacked Josh Allen once, but they pressured him a lot. Why are you not even attempting to? I mean, I know the answer is because Ken Dorsey has 0 creativity and imagination with his offense in his first year as coordinator. But where are the screen passes? Why is James Cook not involved? Why are you not hitting Dawson Knox with short screens or like backup tight ends like Quinn and Morris? Whatever. There's lots of plays like that available, and it's just like the Bills didn't even explore any of that. My biggest takeaway, besides being angry, is that I also look at 2 really good teams, man. These are really 2 evenly matched teams since in Kansas City. Buffalo's the third wheel right now. That's my other takeaway. I like the Bills. Look, let's not be too down on I get it, how bad they played. They're still a 13-win team. They ain't no chumps. You know what I mean? The Bills are a very good team. But right now, they're the 3rd best team in the AFC. And I don't think there's any debate in that right now, team-wise. And then I've seen a lot of national media tweeting, Joe. It's like the Chiefs and the Bengals, they really hate each other, and they sure do. I mean, there's a lot of shit talking after the game, too. 2 years in a row, a lot of shit talking. The Bengals talked their shit before the game. The Chiefs talked their shit after the game. These teams hate each other. But it was like I think it was Albert Breer tweeted, and we got our new Manny versus Brady. I was hearing that a year ago about Josh and Mahomes. Now it's Burrow and Mahomes. And I'm thinking, because I've heard this lately, like the Bills got left at the altar pretty quickly. And as far as Josh Allen, it's like, is he the new Phil Rivers in this equation? And I'm not talking about his playing style or ability, because Josh is a great quarterback, but you know what I mean? It was Manning and Brady competing for championships, and Phillip Rivers putting up good numbers and not competing for championships.
Yeah, it's that the whole thing is like you got to get to the big game, and I don't mean like the Super Bowl. I just mean you got to get to the one that like everything's on the line. Like you got like that's you can make other rivalries through the playoffs like that. I mean that Kansas City Buffalo is obviously a thing. Cincinnati Buffalo is going to be a thing too, but you got to win those games. Like it can't be a hammer versus nail rivalry is the thing. That's not a rivalry. That's just one team taking a whooping. And, Buffalo getting beat by Kansas City, what, 2 different times, was it? Was it
Two
twice?
about the Kansas City?
Yeah, 2 in a row to Kansas City and then the Cincinnati this year. Like,
yep.
That's, I mean, it's pretty clear you're number 3. And you shouldn't be. They shouldn't be number 3, but they are. And I think that's where a lot of the introspection has to happen for Buffalo. And I'll say this, for everybody that was getting on Dorsey's case for running all like these long pass routes on 4th and 1 and 4th and short plays, 4th and 3, whatever. The touchdown Kelsey scores last night, it was a 4th and 1 play, and just Kelsey just runs to the end zone. He's just there, open. Like 4th and 1, like it's they're on the the other side of the 50, so it's it's the right call. But I'm just laughing because like it's a 4th and 1 play, and they threw it kind of 20 yards downfield. That's just kind of chuckling about it because it's that's everything that Buffalo was getting busted on the week before that they did, and they couldn't figure it out.
I think it's going to be a very ugly offseason for Bills fans who embed themselves into social media. People who just are fans and watch the games and don't really mess around with social media that much. They'll talk to their buddies at the water cooler or the bar or whatever. But for fans who are on Twitter daily or Facebook groups daily, it's just going to get uglier and uglier and uglier. You watch 2 teams that are on a level right now above the Bills, and and we've been hearing it for years, but Brandon Beane has been very aggressive in the last couple of years, and you're not. I'm telling you now, there ain't no Von Miller, bro. You're not seeing it this year. They are not going to be aggressive because they can't. I'm almost knocking my microphone over here. They can't be aggressive. They're up against the cap. I think the cap came out today or shortly before Saturday. It's like $224 million or something like that. The Bills got to, they got a lot of work to do. And Tremaine Edmonds, I do believe that they're going to do everything they can to bring him back. In fact, if they really want him back, they're just going to franchise tag him if they have to. But they're not going to be able. Here's what I'm getting at. I don't want to be too long-winded with this. You're going to see a lot more of the same next year. And you just got to hope that they can play better when it matters. I think that's what Brandon Beane's counting on. I think he's counting on the Bills playing better and not being a certain. In fairness, it is a legit excuse. I mean, you look at the defensive line. DaQuan Jones was really good this year, and Von Miller is Von Miller. I mean, you put those 2 guys plus Ed Oliver allegedly anyway was still not healthy. I had a pretty extensive conversation last week with Aaron Quinn about him on the show, and I was very, very low on Ed Oliver. 2.5 sacks this year. I'm tired of hearing about other stats that don't matter. He's supposed to be a penetrating defensive tackle, gets after the quarterback. He's the 9th overall pick. It's guaranteed $10.7 million next year. Give me more than 2.5 sacks, man. Simple as that. But anyway, just one player. I'm saying there's a lot. These guys they're banking on the Bills just being better and maybe some of the younger guys stepping up. You're not going to see, they're not getting rid of coaches. Well, unless you count a safety coach, which I don't know what's going on with that. But Leslie Frazier's, I'd be shocked. I say this now, watch tomorrow. So come on, Leslie Frazier's been relieved of his duties or whatever. I'd be stunned. Ken Dorsey's not going anywhere, and I'd be stunned if Leslie Frazier does. I just think it's going to be an ugly offseason for Bills Twitter. A lot of feisty fans right now are very frustrated. So it's going to be ugly, dude.
If I were a Bills fan, I'd be setting timers on my phone to like I'm allowed this much time online, then get offline and just don't pay attention the rest of the day. Come back to it tomorrow. Be like, all right, I got my half hour. Let's check out everything and see what's up. So you don't drive yourself nuts trying to figure all this stuff out. Because I saw the cap number come out because I had to see how much space Detroit has. They have a lot. They have a lot of cap space. And I saw I saw Buffalo has negative 20 million in cap space. They're 20 million. Like, and everybody's like, "Oh, the cap's fake. It doesn't exist. It's not a real thing." And I'm like, well, it's kind of right. Like you can rejigger some of the contracts and get money back in some spots, but 20 million is a lot of money to make up for. And you
sure is.
You got Edmonds, Poyer. I mean, you're basically already. I think it's already almost written in stone that Poyer's gone. Like he's going to go somewhere else. But
him and Rachel Bush, they didn't just they've rented a house since he's been playing here. They didn't just leave the house; they took their stuff, like their material possessions, and went back home. I think
it's a little nicer to live in Florida, I guess. But
I'm talking about. But he's always had a home in Buffalo as well, which furnished, and now is not furnished anymore.
Oh, well,
so. I think the writing's definitely on the wall with Jordan. I'd love to have him back. I just don't think the Bills can afford him. I don't think they can, or they're willing to pay him what he will get somewhere else.
And and I get what Bean says. He's like, we're not gonna make a big splash. Von Miller was our big splash for that, this past season and this season. Like, yeah, because it has to be, because you paid him a bucket load of money.
Sure.
Like that's, and that's the thing. You can't be like, oh, we're caught off guard by the salary cap. No, you knew what it was going to be. Even Bean was like, yeah, we think it's going to be about 240. That's what it is. And he knew it's coming. He knew everything was happening. And he knew that's why, to me, like, if I were a Bills fan, I'd just be so mad that they didn't do more to take advantage of Allen's, this window with Allen, because Allen's window is as long as he plays, as far as, being able to be a winner.
Sure.
But it's way easier when he's not being paid $45 million a year against the cap. It's way easier when he's making, whatever the rookie contract total was, like 7, 8, 9, whatever it was. Like, it's like I said, they're playing on hard mode now when it comes to managing the team and the cap and all that stuff, because now you got a guy making up 1/5 of your cap. And your quarter. It's the most important player on the team, so that's fine. But you got to find ways to make it work everywhere else in the lineup, because if you don't, you're gonna be looking at off seasons like this for the next few years.
I think there's two keys for the Bills going forward right now that absolutely positively have to happen. Number one, Brandon Beane has to do a better job of drafting in the first 3 rounds.
Yes.
Going forward over the next 2 or 3 years. And I'm not talking about the obvious Josh Allen or Tremaine Edmonds. Of course, those were great picks. I'm talking about the 2nd and 3rd round guys who have, for the most part, have not amounted to much at all. That's got to change over the next couple of years, because this is an organization that's going to be more reliant on than ever when it comes to the draft. Brandon Beane came here in 2018, and it took a year of getting out of cap hell, because that's kind of what they were at. And they're now verging of going back into cap hell. So they're going to have to rely on a lot of rookie picks. And then the other thing is this: you can rely on the defense being healthier and just playing better. You can rely on Shakir getting better. Maybe, I don't know what the hell, I don't even know what to say about Gabe Davis right now. We'll save that for another conversation. But the one thing this team has got to find a way to do somehow with the resources that they do have, they've got to make improvements on the offensive line. You have to protect Josh Allen better, because you could flip out that line for the next 5 years. Ain't going to be any better. These 5 guys playing as it is, I just don't see it. Brandon Beane gushed about Spencer Brown during his last season-ending presser, saying that he was hurt, and this is a big reason why, and didn't have an off-season program, and yada, yada, yada. I'm not saying he's really wrong about that stuff per se, but I don't see it with Spencer Brown. They need a better right tackle, and obviously Roger Saffold, by the way, was named in a Pro Bowl. Are you freaking kidding me? Come on with this Pro Bowl bullshit. They got
Remember last year when everybody was so mad about the Pro Bowl? Like, why isn't Hyde and Poyer going? There's like, who cares? Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, especially when Rodgers. I'll never put any stock into a Pro Bowl selection.
Watch them olaying guys to letting Allen get run over against Cincinnati. Like, come on.
Any stock I ever put in that is gone when Roger Saffold making it. But anyway, they got to find a way to improve this offensive line. They have to, or you're going to see a lot more of the same results, and Josh is going to take way too many hits. It's as simple as that. One last fun fact, by the way, the Bills.
Fun fact. Bills fun fact. Wow, look out.
Well, it's not fun. I lied, because there's nothing fun about it. But anyway, getting back to the fans too, Joe, I think partially because the bar was so high this year that's why fans are so angry. The Sabres, who are fun now, they sucked for years. But it's like, all right, so we're going to talk shit on Twitter about how bad they suck. We do this every year. We're used to this. The Bills are supposed to be a different story. But next year, you look at that schedule, at Kansas City, at Cincinnati, and at Philly. Those are all 3 road games next year. Those teams ain't going to suck in one year either. No, not great. And again, who knows how some teams will be going forward, but I'm telling you right now, I'm confidently can tell you that Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Philly are all going to be good next year. And those are 3 road games for the Bills. So, man, that window is really open wide right now, and it's still there, but
why haven't the Hamlin conspiracy people worked on the Bills schedule conspiracy yet? Like, why isn't that coming out? Why are they playing all these teams on the road? It's fixed. Why they hate the Bills? Even though there's a whole methodology as to how.
Yeah. Kansas City will be coming here after next year.
Why are they going on the road for these kids? Bring them here. They're scared.
So yeah, man, it's they got a lot of work ahead of them. Let's just put it that way. They better be better than they were this year. You might not be worrying about a 13-3 second seed winning the division and having 2 going playoff games again next year. But anyway, all right. So switching gears there, you said on this show last week, the Sabres were about to hit the road for 4 games that if they could go, and I remember it very well. You said if the Sabres could go 2-1-1, that it would be a great showing. Well, they ended up going 3-0-1 and got 7 out of 8 points. Or as you wrote on your Noted Hockey Substack post, 7 out of 8 is pretty damn good. And I saw in your post a fun fact. The last time the Sabres were in the playoffs, you were in your first full year at NBC Sports, was like 12 years ago. But I don't know, just kind of talk about this team a little bit and this road trip that they just successfully came back from. And I don't know, I wouldn't call it shocking that they went 3-0-1, but
no, it's not shocking. It's surprise. I think it's more of a happy surprise. We've seen what they've played like all season. We know that what they're capable of. It's just that was such a tough string of 4 games. Like Dallas is the top team in the Central Division. Like they look awesome this season. St. Louis got Vlad Tarasenko back for that game, and it was like, oh, okay, well that's a huge scoring guy. He obviously loves playing. Well, he loves playing in Buffalo. I don't know if he loves playing against Buffalo, but he, like that's another, it's another team that can be tough. Like they're kind of going through it right now. O'Reilly's hurt, all that stuff, but it's still the Blues. They still won the Stanley Cup a couple years ago. Like you don't know what they could be that team on a given night, but they haven't really been that team this season. And then it's Winnipeg, who's right there with Dallas. Great goaltending. They can score a bunch of goals. And then Minnesota's another top team in the West. They kind of went through it for a little bit before, but they've gotten their stuff back a little bit now. So that was a road trip where if they got knocked around a bit, you'd be like, okay, they took their lumps. I get it. But man, oh man, like that was like a half hang on for dear life. And then Hulk up in overtime with the Power, Power gets his first goal of the season in OT. And then you're like, oh, well, okay, well, that's a surprise. Check that one off. That's a bonus win because you're figuring, okay, maybe get to overtime. If you lose, you kind of expect it. But they win it, and then Power scores, and you're like, oh, all right, well, that breaks the dam for him.
That was cool.
Then he scores against St. Louis, and you're like, he scores the first goal against the Blues, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. They run out to a 4-0 lead in that one. It's it's a second game of a back-to-back. Started to run out of gas late in that game, and then it's it gets a little hairy towards the end, but they hold on. They win it 5-3 with the empty netter. Great. The Winnipeg game, like that's a 3-2 score in the scoreline. That should have been like a 5-0 game, period. And there was a couple of things that happened there. I think Lance and I talked about it a little bit on the pod, but
you did
about how Thompson, Skinner, and Tuck were getting a little too cute. Passing the puck a bunch. Not shooting the puck, and it almost came to bite him in the ass because it was 3-1. Jets have the net empty, and Skinner's skating in on an empty net, and like a guy on his hip trying to stop him from scoring it, and he passes off to Thompson, and Thompson's got a guy draped all over him, and they don't score, and then Winnipeg comes down and scores and makes it 3-2, and you're like,
yeah,
all right, like you just made this a lot harder than it needed to be. But then Don kind of switches things up a little bit against Minnesota. And the second he switched it up, Sabres snapped out of it. And they looked great for the rest of that game. Fleury played awesome. The way that game went here in Buffalo a couple weeks ago, there was no way Fleury was not going to be on top of his game. Like he was so mad at himself for how that game went down, how they lost. Gave up a terrible goal to Dahlin that tied the game, losing in overtime because I think there was a power play. I think it was a power play. I don't remember. But either way, Olofsson rips one past him, game over. But there was no way he was not going to show up and try to win that one himself, and he almost did. Fleury played an awesome game. Sabres almost got goalied in that one, and he still almost pulled it off, that to me tells me a lot about the team, because that was a game where it's the 15th game in 28 days. We're more than a game every other day.
Sure.
It's the last game of a road trip where teams can often get caught looking ahead to going home. And you're beat up. It's a week-long road trip. Guys are banged up all season, but you're just kind of getting through it, and then they still almost pull that game off. And so that speaks volumes to me about what the makeup of this team is that they just go after it. They go get it. And they've had some stinkers this season, but Don gets them right back, gets them refocused really fast. And I don't know, we're talking what, 30 some games to go, 30 plus games to go. They're right in the race, man. I know we joke about being in the hunt, but they're right there. They are right there, and every team that they're battling with has some kind of fatal flaw. So it's going to be really interesting.
We spend so much time, whether it's you and I, whether it's you and Lance, whether it's Sabres fans on Twitter, we spend so much time talking about the main culprits for the success this season. Of course, that's Tage Thompson, and that's Rasmus Dahlin, and Tuck, and Skinner, and Dylan Cousins. One guy that you and Lance spent a good chunk of time talking about on Maintenance Day, the podcast that dropped on Monday, was Casey Middlestat. And it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but the guy struggled early on, and he was it seems like every team, and I'm sure it's like this with other cities too, but every team to some extent has one or two whipping boys where, everything is blamed on them. Sometimes the guy deserves it. Sometimes they don't. It feels like Casey Middlestat is kind of that guy for the Sabres. Sabres are playing like shit. Let's blame that line, and let's blame Casey Middlestat specifically. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, the Sabres have stuck with him, and you guys talked about that. And it would have been easy to scratch the guy, to cut down his minutes dramatically, to let him be in that rotation of guys who are, taking a seat in the press box for the game. But they didn't. They stuck with him, and he's got, and I think you mentioned this on the podcast, and he's already got a career high, 28 points, which is the most he's ever had so far. And there's still 34 games left to go, man. So talk for a couple minutes about Casey Middlestat and how he just seems to have turned the corner for this team right now.
Yeah, it's fascinating with Casey, because I appreciate him quite a bit. This dude works his ass off all the time, and it's a lot of stuff that and even still, it's a lot of stuff that we're not privy to, because we get to watch practices. We don't see what they do off ice and what they're doing, how they handle things away from the rink. But we hear about it from the coaches and teammates, and they tell us about what they do and how they handle things. And Middlestat, man, I pull for him because I know there's a really good player there, and we've seen it in passing times, this season and in previous years. We've seen a guy where it's whoa, okay, there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of skill there. Let's see if he can, get this all put together and kind of run with it and see what happens. And last year, I think, was supposed to be that year, and then he gets I think it was detailed. I forget, it was listed as an upper or lower body injury. I think it was, there was some talk that it might have been a sports hernia type thing. I don't know. But those things take time to deal with. And then, he tried to hurry back because he knows, he's a guy that understands hey, man, I gotta show what I can do here. This is, time's starting to get short for me. I gotta get out there and prove what I can do. And he got himself hurt again by hurrying up. So, again, it's a mistake by effort, to do that. And, by the time he got back in the lineup, it was, the team had gotten on a pretty good roll, and he was kind of lost in the mix. This year, though, it's the kid line supersedes that line, out of the blue, and everybody's oh, new hotness. Cousins, Quinn, Peterka, we love them. They're the new thing. Olofsson, Middlestat, get these bums out of here. They stink.
Right.
And, now Olson's got over 20 goals. Middlestat's set every point he gets is a new career high for scoring. And they're playing better. is the important part. Like, it's not just they're racking up cheap points. They're playing better, and Middlestat is certainly playing better. And it's, it's equal parts of him playing, wing and center. Like, he's not playing center all the time. Like, you put Tyson Jost with those two guys, and it's really what's kind of unlocked them, because Jost does all the dirty work as the center, and these guys can, handle the offensive pickup on it. But Middlestat gets counted on for faceoffs in key moments. He's one of the better faceoff guys, and they don't really have anybody who can win them. So Casey's pretty good at it. So he gets those calls, and then he plays power play time. He gets these calls for offensive situations, and he's a pretty good contributor. He's a good passer. He's got a really good shot. He just doesn't shoot it enough, as far as I'm concerned. But again, like when you're paired up with Olofsson, you'd rather have him shoot. So I get it, but he's playing better. Even some of the fancy stats have turned around for him, which is it's kind of the tipping point where it's like, well, he's getting the points and the fancy stats aren't there for him. That's like, it's kind of fake. It's not anymore. Like, those, it's working for them. And Don gets those matchups right, especially at home. Like, he gets those matchups absolutely perfect for them at home, but played pretty well on the road too. So I'm pulling for him. I want to see him do better, all the time, because he's just a nice guy. It's not, nice people are easy to root for, in case he's a nice guy. So, but like, it's hard to see people get critical on guys that you like, but if it's earned, then it's kind of like, man, you got to pull yourself out of it. You can't argue with it and be like, oh, you can't say that about him. He's nice. It's like, I think he plays like shit. Then it's too bad. But he's not now. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that he's playing well. And that means they've got, on a normal time, they've got 4 lines that are playing pretty well. And that's, boy, oh boy.
Hot take alarm.
Not a hot take at all. Give me a break, guys. But when you're rolling 4 lines that are all playing pretty well, man, like that's the best situation you can have as a coach, because then you can put anybody out and you feel good about it.
I'm really glad that you took the time to explain that sometimes a player can pile up points, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're playing better. Like, I go back to the Bills for a second here, and then Miami game. I think Ed Oliver, and I've said this, and maybe this is a little bit of an overreaction, but I think Ed Oliver was garbage in the playoffs. But if you only look at the box score, Ed Oliver had a sack against Miami. Never mind the fact that he literally went unblocked and it was a gift sack. Sometimes in hockey, if you don't watch any of the games, you don't pay attention, you can look like this guy, he pick up a cheap secondary assist or, a lucky goal or whatever. And you're like, oh, this guy's got, he's got 28 points already.
He's got the points. That's what matters.
But there's a difference between playing better, and it doesn't always equate to necessarily the points. So I'm glad that you said that. Timo Meyer, I got the name right, correct?
Timo Meyer.
Meyer.
Hey,
I've heard a lot of talk about him. Kid from San Jose. I heard Lance talking on the show today, like about what kind of packages, would potentially. And Lance also reported that, even per sources, that the Sabres at this point have just, it's been more due diligence and, aggressively trying to make a trade for him right now. But anyway, Lance said something along the lines on the show of what it would take to get him. And he mentioned like Olofsson, and then like the combination of maybe like 2 first-round picks, like maybe like a Matthew Savoy, and then like maybe a first next year. I know for a fact that there's a lot of Sabres fans who don't really follow the rest of the league much, including the guy who's talking to you on this microphone right now. So I'm going to be honest with you as well. I'm not going to, I'm talking like, for fans who don't know, because Pat Moran don't know either. Tell me and tell people watching and tell people listening a little bit about the kid. Now, I think we have an idea now from reading like what it would take to get him and the money and stuff like that. Like, what would a kid like this bring to a team like the Sabres?
Well, Meyer's an incredible player. It's easy to get lost in San Jose because, they don't get a lot of attention. It's a bad team this year. He's got 48 points right now. It's 28 goals. I mean, he's having a great contract year, but the key difference here is that he's not unrestricted after the season. He's restricted. So any team that acquires him still keeps his rights. They just got to get a contract done with him after that, or else, stuff goes sideways. But he's a fantastic player. He's 26, and he's really coming into his own now. Like, he scored 35 last year. His second season in the league, he scored 30. numbers go up and down, but San Jose's been kind of crappy, and that's just how it goes. But he's outstanding. He clicks a lot of the boxes for stuff that this organization looks for now. I'm just taking a look now just to keep myself reminded. Like when it comes to the possession numbers, his possession numbers are really good. Like he's 55.5% Corsi 4. I know it's shot attempts 4. Like when he's on the ice, the team gets 55.5% of the shot attempts when he's out there, which is really freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
And he drives a lot of that because he shoots a bunch, which guy plays that well. Yeah, you want him to shoot, and he shoots a ton, but he produces and he gets a lot done, and he makes the guys around him better, which is a pretty important thing to do. You don't want to be a guy who puts up big numbers and you don't help out your line mates either. We've seen guys like that here in Buffalo in the past, and it's not the one you're thinking of. It's not the center guy. It's a different guy. I won't say who though. You can figure that out for yourself. But there are guys that are like that where they can produce a ton, but it's not everybody else is feeding him, and if he doesn't score, that's like, well, all right, well, feast or famine.
Sure.
Meyer's not a feast or famine guy. He is offense. He produces. He controls the puck. He plays a ton of minutes. Any other team outside of this team, he would be a first line. He's a first line winger. Here, probably not, because you're kind of set with your first line because it's
sure.
It's Thompson, it's Tuck.
Right.
And Meyer, I think he's right wing. I want to say he's right wing. Yeah, he's right wing, but he shoots lefty. So he's like Olofsson. Just in that respect, different skill sets there. But Myers, geez, man, I think of, just in the fantasy hockey type of sense, I think of putting him next to Cousins, and you got to kind of finesse that a little bit just because you got the kids and everything. But him next to Cousins, I'm just like, oh boy, and those two playing together for like the next X number of years, I'm just like, oh man, that would be awfully good. It'd be really good, and the Sabres can afford. He's looking for $9 million a year after this, which if that's the starting point for the negotiations, okay. But if that's the end point for the negotiations, then it's a little bit. You kind of have to worry a little bit down the road. It's not next year. It's not the year after that. It's 3 years down the road where you're paying Dahlin monster money. You're paying Power. You're probably going to try to lock Power up for 8 years, however much money.
Sure.
You just want to get that done. Cousins is going to get paid, I think, next year. I think he's due to get paid next year. He's going to ask for a lot. Maybe he asks for the Thompson contract, which at this rate, sure. Yeah. $7 million a year. Perfect. Because you're getting a bargain on Thompson. So, but if Thompson sets the artificial bar for everybody, then that doesn't work. That doesn't feel so bad for the forwards anyways.
Right.
But on defense, I mean, you're talking Dahlin. Geez, man. I know people are like, oh, $9 million a year. I'm like, up. He's going to be a north of 10 guy, I'm pretty sure. If I had to guess right now, he's 10, 11. Not Crosby. McDavid makes 12, but McDavid could have asked for $20 million a year, and they should have given it to him, but he wanted to do right by the team. So whatever. I do right by the team, and then they don't do anything to help him out by putting people around him. That's great. Good work, guys. But Dahlin's going to cost a ton of money. I mean, he's going to be a Norris finalist this year. I would bet anything he'll be a Norris finalist this year because he's putting up the points. He's playing great, and getting a lot of attention for what he's doing. Like he's dynamite this year. So he's gonna get paid. There's no doubt there. But it's a lot of money committed down the road, and like Skinner's contract goes for like what, 4 more years after this. Still like 4 more years after this. Like that's $9 million a year. But with Meyer, like he's 26, and if you're locking him up for 7 years after this, 8 years after that, $9 million per, like you're kind of doing it. You're tugging your collar while you do it, but I think you'd feel okay about doing it. But what you have to give up to get him. I don't know that. I mean, we haven't seen Kevin Adams. Well, I mean, apart from the Eichel trade, but that was more gun to his head. You have to make this trade. Something like this where it's more deadline focused, and you're monkeying around with what your plan is for the future. with a trade like that, because you got all the guys that you have now, and like, not everybody's going to be part of the team in the future. That's just the business. But you have to decide, okay, which guys do we see are going to project out to this spot? And it's hard to do because you're basing it off of what they're doing in juniors or minor leagues or whatever. And you have to figure out, okay, are these guys that we want to move forward with, or do we go with what the known quantity guy in Meyer? Because Meyer, what you're getting at the NHL level. The prospect guys, you don't really know. They could be anything. They could be even better than Timo Meyer. You don't know that, but they could maybe not pan out. Maybe it's the whole fun of like dealing with prospects, because that's what the bulk of that deal is going to be. Like, you're going to give up a key roster player, which, I mean, Olafson's the one that would make sense because it's a similar type of production. It's a forward. He's got one more year on his contract after this. So if they want to let him go, they can do that. If they want to keep him, they can do that too. Yeah. But like, which of the young guys do you give up to make that happen? And like, I think that's something where I don't know that they're comfortable with answering that question just yet, because there's still, like, you look at the guys in Rochester, like Kulik looks like he might be a monster. Like, when he gets to the NHL, when it's time for him to get there, it's not going to be right away. It's not going to be this year. Might not even be next year. We'll see. But like, his game's coming around. He looks great. But then you got the guys that you don't see up close yet. The Olivier Nadeau's, the Josh Blooms, the Matthew Savoy's, like guys like that are playing in junior hockey that are, they're not under your roof yet. So you don't know what they're going to be yet. And that's where the mystery comes into play. And that's where that's the biggest part of this, that I think they just don't want to mess around with it too much, because that's cost control with those guys. With Meyer, you're adding him and you're spending a lot of money immediately.
Yeah. When they saw with the Sabres now, they play Wednesday night at home against Carolina. And then after that, man, they're off for a full 10 days. And then when they come back from those full 10 days off, they pick up on between February 11th and February 28th, 9 games in 18 days. I think I'm looking here in the calendar. That's a lot. 9 and 18. And
don't look at it March.
So that ends February.
March looks even worse. I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, sure. But the point is, so you got 9 and 18 games. So 9 games in February, plus Wednesday's game at home. So 10 games in February, I guess I'm saying. The end of the month, the NHL trade deadline is March 3rd. Yep. This is going to be, for the first time in probably a handful of years at least, an exciting month of hockey. This is kind of the theme of this podcast. I put on the graphic and everything. An exciting stretch for the Sabres coming up here, man. And this feels like it's going to be, they're set up well for an exciting stretch run. And they come out of this okay. And then, then you're really, right now we're like, all right, this team's in position for a playoff race. They come out of this February looking pretty good. Then it's like, all right, now we can really, not only can we dig in and hope for the best, but now you might see Kevin Adams become, and I can't believe I'm saying this, a trade deadline buyer. Not a seller, a buyer. Yeah. They might look for a piece or two. Isn't it? I'm not wrong to say that. By the way, news, Tage Thompson is day-to-day. You were covering practice today. Upper body injury. Cousins and Samuelson didn't practice, but I guess they're going to be good to go for Wednesday. I guess that's what you guys heard in the locker room.
Yeah. Cousins and Samuelson practiced on Monday. Thompson did not, but Thompson was there. I know it's designated injury. He's just banged up. Like, it's playing a ton of minutes.
Playing safe with him Wednesday. Do you see him playing safe? He'd probably take a seat Wednesday.
Granato said that Thompson's probably going to practice on Tuesday. He said he would bet anything that he practices Tuesday, which, listen, you finally have time. You finally have time where you can like relax with some guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can keep a couple of guys off the ice and not worry about it. Like, you have a moment to breathe at last, and you're just kind of like, all right, just take another day. It's fine. Like,
right, sure.
Tuesday, you'll skate Monday, Wednesday morning before the game, you'll be fine.
Still always a little bit nerve-wracking, because again, Tage has become kind of like the Buffalo Sabres version of a Josh Allen in a way, So but anyway, like I said, just with 18 days, 9 games over that span, you're really going to get a good idea if the Sabres are going to be in the thick of it. This really is an exciting time for Sabres fans. You don't get to say that often once the calendar turns for a new year,
Yeah, it's been a few years since they're in a spot where it's like, are they buying? They might be buying. Like this is a thing. And to me, they are going to buy. And it's not. It probably won't be some big splash kind of move, but it'll be something to help deepen things out a little bit, or maybe strengthen an area of that they might see as a weakness. I think maybe third pair defense they might see as like could use a little bit of a boost. But we'll see. Maybe I can't imagine they're going to add another forward, but unless some kind of offer comes across the way where it's like, oh, hey, this might really change the dynamic with us. Like maybe we got to think about this, but something along those lines. I'd say if anything, if they add anything, it's going to be a depth type defenseman. But like, I mean, you're not going to get wowed by the names, but they'll add. I think they'll add. I think they're certainly going to add somebody. I just wonder how big, because they can make a big move. They have all the parts that they can make a big move if they want to. Like they have the prospects, they have the picks, they got all that stuff. They can do it if they want to, and they got plenty of cap space, so it doesn't matter. So if they want to go big fishing, they can. But I don't see them doing that or really needing necessarily to do it. I think the thing to keep in mind with a lot of this is that you're going for the playoffs with a team that's still learning to grow together, and it's not to say that you're just going to hang on to your cards and just say like, well, we're going to go with this group and see what happens. Like, I think Adams realizes you owe it to everybody on this team to say like, all right, let's see what we can do to get us to the postseason.
Yeah. One last, not even a question. This is more of a statement for me. The difference, and let's just pretend that the Sabres made the playoffs. Okay. Wishful thinking, but I'm going to pretend, God damn it. The Bills, it's different. The Bills, I didn't enjoy the playoffs because the Bills came with an expectation that we're going to the Super Bowl. So I had stress and anxiety. I'm talking about the Miami game and then ultimately the Cincinnati game. I was tight. I didn't really get to enjoy it the way I wish I could have because I was concerned and worried. Right. If the Sabres make the playoffs, dude, they could go get swept and lose 7-0 every game, and I'm still going to be happy as shit that the Sabres made the playoffs. I know the corner is turned. Kind of how it felt like with the Bills in 2017. The drought ended. I was so happy to be in the playoffs. Now, they should have beat Jacksonville in that game. Yeah. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Jacksonville sucked. But anyway, my point was I was just so goddamn happy that I was able to enjoy it. The Sabres make the playoffs. I don't care who they play. I don't care if they get swept or what the scores are, if they're lopsided. It would just be so fun that I would enjoy the living shit out of it, no matter what. You know what I mean? So that would be cool.
The party in the plaza for that first game, it'll be a game 3 because they're not going to have home ice.
Right.
For a game 3, that first day party at the plaza, holy Jesus, man. Like they might have to block off a few streets to make sure they got enough people to do it. It's probably better that the Buffalo News moved out to Larkinville because they're going to need the parking lot by that to fill out.
That would be awesome. All right, so here's how I want to end this podcast, and I think we're going to start doing this going forward. So on Facebook, there's this Facebook group that I follow. It's called Best Salad Recipes, and they have food stuff, like actual salad recipes, but they also have some cool like life questions and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? It'd be pretty fun to like take 3 questions a week and just ask Joe for what his opinion is, what he prefers with these. And, it's also an opportunity. And I said this, I do this with Aaron, a little bit different, but sort of the same, where it's about giving fans, people who listen and watch this show, just an opportunity, a little bit more about you besides just what you think about hockey or football, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I got 3 questions for you. And by the way, I have not told, in fact, Joe's just hearing about this now.
No, so, I have no idea what you're throwing.
Yeah, he has absolutely no idea. And again, these aren't like, life, the biggest thought-provoking questions ever. They're kind of like just little fun fact questions, I guess. So let's start here. The question 1, something you don't eat at all. And I'll add to that by saying something you don't eat at all that is otherwise pretty popular with most people.
If you'd asked me this like 10 years ago, the list would have been pretty extensive. I was a huge picky eater. I'm a bit less picky now. I'm still kind of figuring out my own palate, which is weird to say at 40 years old. But thing I don't eat at all though is pickles. Cannot stand pickles. The smell of them drives me nuts. Like everything about a pickle should be good. Like cucumbers are good. I mean, they don't taste like anything, but they're good. the mix that the pickling mix, the whole thing that you put together to make pickles all that stuff sounds amazing. It's like, wow, that sounds great. You mix the two together, you could chase me out of a room with them. I can't.
I don't like them either.
I know it's like it's a thing. It was like, oh, grow up. It's like, I'm trying, okay, like I'm trying, but like I can't get down with it.
I can't wait to tell my wife, Erin, that you use that as an answer, because she'll laugh, because literally, like, when we go out somewhere and I'll get like a hamburger and fries or beef on whack and fries, whatever, I specifically ask for no pickle, because not only do I not like the pickle, I don't like the pickle juice that trickles down the plate and gets into my fries and into the bread of my burger. Ugh, I don't like that. Anyway, I could have easily said pickles as well. For me, which is again it's taboo in Buffalo, blue cheese, but also ranch. Either. I don't like blue cheese or ranch. I get my wings, I have sauce, and that's it. I don't even use any of them. I don't know. Well, technically, I guess that's something you eat is blue cheese, but
dipping wings in any. No thanks.
Give me the sauce, man.
If the wing tastes good on its own. If it doesn't taste good on its own, if it needs the blue cheese or ranch, get out of my face. It's not a good wing then. It's a bad wing.
All right. Second question here. What do you make for dinner when you have zero energy and nothing planned? Which I feel like for a hockey guy like you is probably quite often, by the way.
Yeah.
You have nothing playing and zero energy.
It's usually some kind of pasta thing. Honestly, it's so easy to just boil some water, throw some pasta on, mix, open up a jar of sauce and let it heat up and do that. Maybe, now that I got an air fryer about a year ago. I think it was about a year ago now. So like making, not having to like fire up a frying pan on the stove to like cook up a chicken or something like that is so much. Nope, set it, forget it, walk away, and then pull out a nicely cooked chicken from that, and I'm good. Like, it's even still, that's almost too much effort, but yeah, no, it's just like I've got like protein pasta up in the cabinet, so it's not, I mean, it's a carb bomb, but like I still get some kind of protein out of it, because you still have to have some kind of balance with that, but yeah, that's usually the easiest thing to do. If I'm ultra lazy, like a can of soup, like just some like Wegmans like Italian wedding soup, yeah, good. Like 3 minutes later, I've got a quote unquote meal.
Mine is well, I shouldn't even say dinner, because sometimes I have it for lunch, or sometimes I have it 11:30 at night. I like to take Salen's hot dogs and put them in I have an air fryer oven, put 400 degrees, 10 minutes, and 10 minutes later, you have a Salen's hot dog that tastes maybe 85 to 90% as good as you make it on a grill. I mean, it's really actually good.
Nice.
Simple, easy, lazy, don't have any energy. I just throw 2 hot dogs in there. I'm not a really good cook anyway. I'll try to dabble around and cook something for real every now and then. But yeah, more times than not, just air fryer hot dogs for me. All right, last question here for Joe. When I was 15, and we're different ages here, so this might be a little different for us, but when I was 15, my favorite band was. We go back to 15-year-old.
I'm just doing math now in my head. 15,
get our age. It's not easy to remember being 15.
Yeah,
anymore.
no, 15 was, it was 1994. I'm thinking 15, I was like, what? That was sophomore in high school? Sophomore, junior year of high school, something like that. What was I listening to a lot then? I think I might have had a Discman. I think I had a Discman by that point. It was favorite band though. Oh, man,
tough.
Yeah,
you were 15 during a really, really strong music
extremely good time to be.
I was not during 15 during that.
I think at that age, I think it's Pearl Jam. I think Pearl Jam's is the one. There was a healthy mix of Soundgarden and Nine Inch Nails thrown. I think Nine Inch Nails was that. I think that was that year. But yeah, those two bands, and then I was still kind of feeling my way through some of the Rush music, because I've been an old music fan for a long time. So I think that would be Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Rush, Nine Inch Nails. Yeah, that my favorite bands haven't really changed very much since then.
Mine not that much either. So I go back to being 15 years old, and I go probably a full era before you. So we're talking like mid to late 80s, 86, 87-ish. So this was well before the great bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and stuff like that. And I was a very cheesy pop music mainstream fan, and I still am, by the way. So I was thinking about REO Speedwagon. I was thinking about Huey Lewis in the News. Oh, I love Huey Lewis in the News. But I think I settle on Hall & Oates. It was probably my favorite when I was like 15 years old. I still love their music, by the way. Play it all the time. But yeah, for me, it would be Hall & Oates. By the way, too, I love when kids, like when you were 15 years old, or even let's just say more than 15, let's go around 20. Did you find yourself listening to music that was like, quote unquote, before your time? Because there's nothing more I love than when I see, like, I work with this kid. He's like 20, 21 years old, and he's constantly listening to music from like the 50s and 60s and shit. And that's like 40 years before his ass. You know what I'm saying? But like when you were a young kid, did you like music that was way older than you, or were you kind of one of those in the moment music guys? I was raised, my father made my ass listen to 50s and oldies, so I knew every oldie song because I had no freaking choice. Like, did you like oldies? You know,
what age are we talking? Like, are we talking like younger than 10?
Well, I mean, if no, I'm saying like say between the years of 15 and 20. So for you, that would be like the mid to late 90s. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're like, did you like 70s or 60s or 50s music, or maybe 80s music?
Yeah. I mean, like I'll tell you this. 8th grade was when I started listening to Rush. I had gotten I got Moving Pictures like as a cassette,
right?
Like some book form type, those Scholastic book form. For whatever reason, like they held on to the stuff that like sold music until like our 8th grade year. I was like, wait, we can get music now? Cool. So what did I get? I was like, I'll get Moving Pictures by Rush. And friends were like, what the hell are you doing? Like, get something that's like new. And I was like, no, I want this. But yeah, I was listening to Rush, Zeppelin. Like Zeppelin's timeless as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
I listened to a ton of them. Rush, Zeppelin. I'm trying to think. Hendrix. Jesus, I'm a huge Hendrix nut. I'm a huge Hendrix nut. I forget that I'm a Hendrix nut. Then I look through all of my music and I was like, oh my God, I bought like everything that the Hendrix family releases now. I'm like, yeah, I'll get that. It's like, yeah, I have 500 versions of Voodoo Child, but like, it's fine. I'll get this other one. Wow. But yeah, like them, like old blues artists too. Like, a gateway into blues music was this terrible like Simpsons Sing the Blues thing that they did back in the day when the Simpsons were like brand new, like in 1990, like 11 years old listening to this thing. It was just like, the Simpsons cast like singing songs. But like that kind of opened the world of blues music up to me. So I started, reading up on it. I was like, wow, okay, check that out. And then get your mind blown at like 12, 13 years old by like old blues musicians. And you're just like, whoa, okay, this is wild. Like that and jazz music too. I got really into jazz when I was young and, got really much more into Miles Davis when I was like in college years, Miles Davis and John Coltrane and them. So it was, the tastes were kind of all over the place. Although I'll say this though, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, MTV was like just starting up or whatever, around then. And every time the Talking Heads video for Burning Down the House came on, I would go nuts. And like 5-year-old going nuts to Talking Heads sounds like, I look back at it and I go, wow, what a weirdo I was. But I was like, no, I had really good taste as a 5-year-old in music.
Yeah. I like that video too. I remember it well. Oh, you know what? One other thing too. Then I'm gonna let you go, man. This is fun though. I don't really give a shit about the time right now. We don't talk. We rarely talk. We're both pretty much lifelong wrestling fans. We've kind of come and gone. We have our moments where we're deep in it. And then we kind of step back and we only follow it, sparingly here and there. But so I watched the Royal Rumble on Saturday. I had some friends over, and the Rumble, for the most part, was like, whatever, it kind of went as expected. It was all right. It was nothing really worth talking about on a podcast here. But I'm going to tell you this. Kind of call this a hot take, I guess, if you want to or whatever. The ending angle with the Bloodline and Sami Zayn, this story as a whole might be the best wrestling story I've ever seen in my life. It is certainly, without question, one of the best I've seen in years. I can't think of a storyline that has been better for this, that's lasted for quite a while now, and we've been waiting for a payoff, and it delivered. A lot of times you get a lot of promise, and then just it kind of goes away, and it never really lives up to what you hoped it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that shit with a couple people in my house, and a couple people are just, you know how some casual fans are who just watch the big shows. Some
Right.
people don't even like watching wrestling. They just like the Rumble. Quite frankly, we had a pool going. We were gambling on the numbers and stuff like that. But anyway, they don't get, so if you're not invested in the story and you haven't been following it, it's not that big of a deal what happened at the end of the show. But to see Sami Zayn hit Roman Reigns with that chair and then the beating he took afterwards, and as an added layer, Jey Uso, the way he reacted and was like in tears and walked out. I was on the edge of my goddamn seat, Joe. I was like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
This is incredible, incredible storytelling. Better than any TV show that I've watched in a long time. Am I over exaggerating a little bit? Am I overselling this? Because I think it's fucking incredible, man.
No. With wrestling, I mean, wrestling storylines can get so stupid and convoluted and change at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
This one's felt like that they've had a proper timeline set up for this for a long time. And they're letting it play out. Obviously, you get different people involved. Like Sami Zayn had his weird shit going on there for ways, conspiracy theorists. And I think after January 6th, they're kind of like, let's not do that angle anymore. And just cut that out. Let's just not have that be the thing. But
it just started out silly though.
Played off of that. Like they played off of that to bring him in, make him one of the Usos and doing that stuff. And Sammy's a tremendous performer. He's so good. And like he's gotten saddled with some real bullshit stuff over the last few years. That conspiracy,
the jackass guys at WrestleMania last year.
Right? It's so stupid. But like he's the definition of the good soldier because he's great in the ring. He's great on the mic. He's great at everything he does. And then he gets these dog shit things to do because he's the one who can do it the best. And it's like, well, maybe just don't do them in the first place. Like just let it go. But like this was the perfect thing to have him in. And then to play it, to use his, the relationship, the friendship he's got with Kevin Owens, because those guys go back a long way.
Yes.
Long, long way. And to use that as part of this, because, that match gets made, it's Owens and Reigns, and you're like, well, there's no way Owens is winning. There's no shot. And it's in the back of your head, like, oh, maybe Sammy turns, and then, that changes it. Maybe Owens wins the title. It's like, dude, Reigns has had the belt for like what, 4 years now, 3-4 years.
You're
not just gonna have him dump it at Royal Rumble. If he's gonna lose it, it's gonna be at Mania, which now that's the setup for Reigns and like the big split. Now, the key is WWE never wants a full payoff. They want to continue it on. But for me, WrestleMania has to either be the starting point for a big story or the end point. And for something like this has to be the end point, because this has been going on for so long, and it took them so long to get people to cool off on Reigns, because Reigns, everybody hated him forever because it was very obvious they were trying to push him to be the champ.
Sure.
And it was just kind of like, people were just like, knock it off with this stuff. Because you had other people around that were really good, and you're just kind of like, why are you screwing around with this guy for? Like, and they essentially let a bunch of guys from the Shield just go off and do their own stuff. Rollins goes off and does his thing. Dean Ambrose, John Moxley takes off. Like, these guys just do their own thing now. And, he's like the last one that was hanging on to that, but they kept dicking around with him and just making it so that the fans hated him even before he even had a title, because they were just sick of him getting pushed all the time. But then he got the belt, and it's like, well, now we're not taking it off him because we've worked so long to do this. But now they've made it into a really great storyline. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It's got me. I don't watch WWE very much at all, because I watch the Rumble because I love the Rumble. It's like that's like popcorn for me. I love that stuff.
Sure.
But when I saw it was, the 2 Rumbles, the men's and women's, and then like 3 matches, I was like, ooh, okay, they've done this right. They didn't try to cram like five other matches and have it drag out to like 1 a.m. But like 2 title matches, that weirdo friggin' Bray Wyatt thing, I don't understand what the hell that was about. But like the title match, I was like, I wonder how they're gonna do with this, and then Reigns wins, he gets Owens handcuffed to the ropes, and you're just kind of like, he's gonna beat his ass again. It's like he's done this with everybody that he beats. He just tries to make an example of him. You're just like, right, here we go. It was very much like a here we go again with this crap thing.
That was vicious, though.
It was brutal.
Super kicked him like 25 times, the Usos, man.
Roman gets a lot of credit for how he's ran with this because
he deserves it.
Even when people hated him, I was like, this dude's really good. It's just they saddled him with these dog crap things to do.
He's a great bad guy.
Tremendous. Man. And like he's got the whole bad guy image and everything. It's great. It's perfect. But when you added the Sammy part to this, it was kind of like, ooh, either Sammy sells himself out and just goes and starts popping Owens, and then it's kind of like, great, because then it would have been like,
I thought that might happen though.
That would have been like the old NWO stuff back in the day, where it was like, oh, maybe Macho Man's gonna turn on him, and like, oh, he's gonna do the right thing, and then he ends up kicking somebody, he ends up like beating Sting's ass, and then it's like he throws an NW shirt on.
Right. Great. They could have kept it going. Right.
It could have been the same old, but like they didn't do it, which is nice. It's not a swerve, but it kind of is. It's kind of a swerve.
I love
it's just great storytelling.
I love the bloodline being bad. And I'll tell you, man, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'll sit there because they became cool. Like I'll sit there, Joe, and I'll do this. I'll put my arms up in the air and give the one symbol. I do that shit all the time. I do it at work. I'm fucking around with people. But yeah, Roman Reigns deserves a lot of credit for being such a good bad guy. But with Sammy, the problem is that now, so they have a pay-per-view coming up in 3 weeks in Montreal, of all places, where Sami Zayn's from, elimination chamber. Yeah. So yeah, he's gonna. But it's like you can't rush this story. You can't have Roman Reigns cheat and beat him in 3 weeks and then turn your attention to Cody Rhodes, because it's gonna be unfair to Cody, because the crowd wants Sammy. So now Cody Rhodes is in the bad position of where they're gonna boo him because they don't want that, man. His time will come. I don't know how they're going to handle it.
Baby face, like that's the part Cody's in. Like
to your point, though, and we're going to get out of here. But to your point, I'm so invested in this storyline. I don't care that much about watching wrestling anymore. I really don't. I'll read the results on Cage Side. I'll read the recaps, the rumors every day. I'll tune in here and there a little bit for Raw. Friday nights I work, so I don't really ever watch SmackDown. I'll see a couple highlights. But I am we're taping this Monday late afternoon now. I can't wait to watch wrestling tonight, because I want to see what comes of, if anything comes of this angle that they got going on. It's just that it's that compelling. But anyway, I like talking a little wrestling here on this podcast, man.
It's cool to have something fun to talk about instead of like, dumb crap the whole thing with like Vince coming back now. It's just how soon does this turn into like a fart contest with Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn? Vince is like, I love that stuff.
All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. Make sure you follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Check out Maintenance Day podcasts not every Monday, but every week when Lance Lazowski. Follow it on your favorite podcast feed. It comes up and you'll know when it's out there. And of course, make sure you check out notedhockey.substack.com. Support Joe, $5 a month, man, $50 per year. Dude is just crushing it, covering the Sabres this year, covering hockey this year. And it's a lot of fun, of course, when you're writing about a team that is, playing well, man. So anyway, make sure you guys do that. And you know what? We're still on the air here. I'm going to do a little refresh here. I want to know how many subscriptions I am away from 1,000. If I'm not at 1,000 right now, I'm going to be mad. It's at, it's 998. I'm 2 away. When I wake up in the morning and this podcast drops, it better be at 1,000. But anyway, thanks for doing this, Joe. As always, man. Good talking to you.
Yeah, it's a good time. Always fun. Listen, and we got to talk wrestling this week. That's crazy.
Talk to you guys soon.